All right, let's jump right into this. We're going to look at money, but not as a math problem. Think of it more like a psychology puzzle. So forget everything you think you know about spreadsheets and budgets for a minute, because today we're exploring 5 powerful insights from Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money that will totally reframe how you see your finances.
So, to get started, let me ask you a question. How does somebody like Mike Tyson, one of the most famous boxers in history, earn over $400 million in his career, an unbelievable amount of money, and still end up going completely bankrupt?
Because by 2003, that's exactly where he was. $23 million in debt. Now, this isn't just some crazy story about lavish spending on mansions and pet tigers. It's a huge lesson that what you earn has almost nothing to do with what you actually keep.
And that gets to the absolute heart of this whole thing. See, financial success isn't really about how smart you are. It's not about complex formulas or fancy degrees. It's a soft skill. And how you behave is so much more important than what you know.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to break down 5 big ideas. First, the role of luck and risk in your life. Then, the huge difference between getting rich and staying rich. Third, why you should really be saving for freedom. Fourth, the super important concept of the wealth you don't see. And finally, we'll look at how your brain actually deals with money.
First up, luck, risk, and you. Now this is about accepting a kind of tough truth. You are not 100% in control of your financial life. And you know what? Learning to be okay with that is basically a superpower.
We've all heard of Bill Gates, right? But I bet you've never heard of his high school friend, Kent Evans. They were both brilliant, both completely obsessed with computers. But Gates got hit by a lightning strike of good luck. His high school just happened to be one of the only ones in the entire world with a computer back then. Evans, on the other hand, got hit by pure, tragic risk. He died in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated. Same talent, same passion, completely different outcomes.
So the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. Success is never just about hard work, and failure is never just about being stupid. There are always these invisible forces playing a role. Now, that doesn't mean you just give up. It means you should be humble when you win and forgiving with yourself when you lose, and focus like a laser on the one thing you can control, making the best possible choices you can. Okay, let's move on to our second insight, which builds on this perfectly. Getting rich versus staying rich. We tend to lump them together, but trust me, they require completely opposite skills. Think about it. Getting wealthy, that usually means taking big risks. It requires optimism, taking huge leaps of faith, and betting big just to get your foot in the door. But staying wealthy, that's a whole different ballgame. That's about survival. It's about humility, patience, and avoiding the risk that could wipe you out. It's knowing when to stop gambling.
And we have the perfect contrast right here. On one side, you've got someone like Sam Bankman-Fried. He got rich insanely fast by taking massive, aggressive risks in crypto. But he didn't know when to stop. He kept playing that same dangerous game, and it all imploded. Then you have Warren Buffett. His entire philosophy is built on one thing: survival. He hates losing money more than he loves making it. And that's why he's still in the game after more than 60 years.
All right, on to insight number 3. Saving for your freedom. Most of us are taught to save money for stuff. You know, a down payment, a new car, a vacation. But what if the real reason to save is something way, way more powerful than that? I want you to really think about this for a second. What is more valuable than money itself? It's not a thing you can buy. It's control. It's having options. It's the ability to wake up one morning and say, you know what? I can do whatever I want today. And this brings us to the concept of an FU fund. Now, it's a blunt name, I know, but it's a beautiful idea. It's having a pile of money big enough that you can walk away from a job you despise, or a terrible boss, or any bad situation, really, without panicking about rent. This fund isn't for buying things. It's for buying your own autonomy. And that quote just says it all, doesn't it? Real wealth isn't about having a fire hose of cash to buy more stuff. It's about getting to the point where you have enough, so you can stop thinking about money all the time. That is real freedom. Now for our 4th insight. And oh man, this is a big one. The wealth you don't see. This is all about understanding that there is a massive difference between looking rich and actually being rich. Let me tell you about a guy named Ronald Read. His whole life, he lived a pretty simple, humble life. He worked as a janitor and a gas station attendant. He drove a used car. If you saw him on the street, you'd think he was just an ordinary guy, probably just getting by.
But when he passed away back in 2014 at 92 years old, the world got a huge shock when they found out his net worth. I want you to take a guess. How much do you think this quiet, humble janitor had managed to save up?
$8 million. He left an $8 million fortune to his local hospital and library. People were absolutely floored. How on earth was that even possible?
It's because he understood this fundamental truth. You see, real wealth isn't the fancy car you see driving down the street. That's just someone's spending on display. Real wealth is what you don't see. It's the savings in the bank, the investments that are quietly compounding in the background, building you freedom. And that leads us perfectly into our final and maybe the most critical insight of all, your brain on money. We all like to pretend we make financial decisions based on pure logic, but the truth is, we are emotional beings. And understanding why it's better to be reasonable than rational is everything. Just look at this classic emotional trap. A perfectly rational investor knows you should just buy and hold for the long run. But when the market suddenly crashes and you see your life savings down 40%, your brain starts screaming, "Danger!" Your emotions take the wheel, you sell everything to make the pain stop, and you lock in those terrible losses at the absolute worst possible moment.
And this is the difference. See, rational thinking says, I have to be 100% invested in whatever strategy has the highest returns on paper, no matter how scary it gets. But reasonable thinking, it acknowledges you're a human. It says, okay, this is a good strategy, but I'm also going to keep some cash on the side just so I don't totally freak out and I can actually sleep at night. One is perfect on a spreadsheet, the other actually works in the real world.
So at the end of the day, the takeaway is so simple but so profound. Stop looking for the most mathematically perfect financial plan. Instead, find a plan that is good enough, that you understand, and most importantly, that you can actually stick with when things get tough. Consistency will beat brains every single time.
We've covered a lot today, but none of these ideas mean a thing if you don't act on them. These psychological shifts are game changers, but only if you actually apply them. So as we wrap this up, just remember this. You can't go back and change the past, but you can absolutely change your future. And you can start right now.